Today we're going to be talking about the winter anime season of 2026. And the first show we're going to be talking about is Fate Strange Fake. Did I
Fate,
get it?
yes, Fate Strange Fake. That is correct.
Nice. And okay, first I want to open with Noah Stolfo, 0 out of 10.
I think by saying that, you might have actually just collectively made like any Fate fans watching this like cringe. Like, is that all you people care about? Get the fuck away from my Fate, you fucking degenerate.
And the other thing I was going to say is, as I was watching this, I was like, okay, well, it's a good thing that Coco is like a Fate fan and knows all about this stuff because I've got no idea what's going on. And
Well,
then
that's
immediately after you said, I have no idea what's going on.
that's a little bit of an overstatement. So as a result of this show becoming a thing, like obviously like it kind of revived the conversation about Fate on Twitter. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, at first I was kind of just seeing people talking about this, and I guess through engaging with tweets about this specific anime, I started getting like general Fate related tweets on my timeline. I mean, this was a show I w was gonna watch regardless because I was like, oh, that poster looks pretty cool, and that's never led me astray before.
Right.
Um, I mean, hey, it had the Fate name on it, and Fate, I mean, surely it wouldn't have this notoriety and like be shit. So like, I mean, like, I mean, it's Fate. I mean, come on. Although the reason why Arlon is describing me as a fan is because I did, in fact, literally yesterday or the day before, just finished binging the entire Fate Stay Night visual novel, and it was pretty good. But saying that I quote unquote know all about this stuff would be a little bit incorrect because Fate is infamously known to be like this giant multimedia franchise that has a lot of shit going on, and it is by design because Nasu, the mastermind behind the Fate franchise, is inspired by things like the Marvel Comics universe and very intentionally wants it to be like this broad universe with a lot of shit going on.
That is a choice.
One's degree of investment would vary from person to person. I liked Fate Stay Night. Um, it's actually funny because not too long before we watched this, I was watching the Digibro rants, and one of the rants that she did was about Fate Stay Night. And one of the points that she made, which honestly I think is pretty valid, is like, why would you continue to give a shit about Fate if it's not really related to like any of the stuff that you really care, that you actually care about? And as I was watching this, I was like, man, that is like so true. The only reason why you would like ever really like continue to engage with like the rest of the Fate franchise is if you like care about like more than just like the characters. Like you actually care about the lore, you actually care about the magic system, the concept of the Holy Grail War. I was saying in Digicord when I was like kind of like live posting my read through Fate Stay Night that like when they're like talking about the lore and shit, that's usually when I tend to check out. And it's not even just because of the lore itself, it's because Fate is so long-winded in explaining that stuff. Yeah, it's like, oh man, like, oh, there's like the magic that comes from humans and or like the air and mana is like magic that comes from humans, and it's like, oh, I'm surprised I even remember that, but that's probably because it was the last bit of lore that I was reminded of because they brought it up again towards the end of Heaven's Feel. And it's like, no, I'm definitely a person who like cares more about the characters more than that stuff. And if that's the case, then like your investment like across the Fate franchise is definitely going to vary because for one, the main characters, Shiro, Tosaka Rin, Elia, Saber as in
Saber was in this, Coco.
Saber as in Artoria,
You
Pen
you didn't like
Pendragon.
you didn't like Saber and his sexy feminine body.
Lol. Well, it's actually funny that you say that because one of the things that I find extremely laughable about Fate Stay Night is the fact that Saber uh is initially insecure about being seen naked by the main character because she feels like her body is rugged and too masculine because she's a knight and a king. And I feel like the author and the artist were on two different wavelengths. That is not the case. There is not a single bit of muscle on Saber's body whatsoever, literally none. Um, so that's what that reminded me of. But yeah, Artoria Pendragon is not in this. Um, or King Arthur, basically.
Oh, that reminded me. I have a
Yeah.
question. So
hmm
in Fate, now, I'm assuming the answer is yes because Astolfo exists. Like, does that mean if you have like a big buff knight like Saber in this, and you're a guy, do you have to have gay sex with him?
I mean, you would have to, I think, right? I don't know. Like I was saying
Why
before
don't
off
they
the
show
podcast.
that? They should show
Well,
that.
I mean, somebody told me that there is a gay relationship in Fate Zero, but I don't know how far true that is. All I know for sure is that apparently Gilgamesh is very popular in yaoi porn, and I feel like there's got to be some kind of reason for that. So
Yeah.
if it turns out that like if I watch like Fate Zero and like fucking Kotomine and Gilgamesh have fucking gay sex, that would be fucking hilarious. Oh, by the way, Kotamine is that character that I said looks like my OC Angelo. That's
Yeah.
Kotamine. Yeah.
Nice.
They wouldn't have to because again, it's something you only have to do if you can't preserve your servant through your own magical energy, and you have to. Well, it's actually kind of weird because I guess if you can't do it, then wouldn't someone else have to? Because it's the same source. Whatever. It's weird. It's a thinly veiled excuse to have hentai scenes in the visual novel because they were worried that the visual novel wouldn't sell without them. Which actually kind of brings me to the first point about the actual show.
There's no hentai scenes. Where are the hentai scenes?
Well, no, I mean it's related. It's related more so to. So I don't really know much about Fate as we've just established. But one thing I do know is that Fate Stay Night, like originally, looked pretty different from how it turned out. Originally, the protagonist was a girl. Originally, Saber was a dude, and they didn't gender swap King Arthur. He was just King Arthur. There's an OVA called like Fate Stay Night Prototype or something. It's like an animated OVA that they made that was like based off of the scrapped concepts. And it kind of seems like in Fate Strange Fake, they're kind of like rehashing those concepts and turning it into like an actual story now, I guess. Fate Strange Fake takes place like 5 months after Fate Stay Night. So like obviously they're not like making like they're not double dipping, I guess, and having both a male and female King Arthur. This saber, I don't think is King Arthur. They question that the identity of this saber pretty early on, especially when he swears on his what was it, his loyalty to King Arthur. That was like the first giveaway. But like
Yeah.
the main character of this is also Ayaka something, who is the original version of the main character from Fate Stay Night, Emiya Shiro. So it kind of seems like they were like, Fate is popular enough that we can take this thing that we thought wasn't going to be financially successful way back in 2003 and just like make it a thing is pretty interesting. Although for some reason in this, I was kind of confused because Ayaka's blonde in this, but like in the prototype she's black. In the prototype OVA she's got black hair. She's not black. She has black hair. Although
There was a black cop in this.
yeah,
That
this takes
happened.
place in America, and one of the quickest ways Japanese like anime would try to communicate that this takes place in the States is to have a black person there. So there you go. Um, but like as far as the actual plot goes, I mean, as Arlon pointed out, I was a little bit lost and didn't really know what was going on.
It really felt like just starting in the middle of something.
Yeah.
It reminds me of some other seasonal we watched, or no, I watched that I talked about that you did not watch. And I can't
hmm
remember the name of it.
I mean, when I think of like an anime that kind of just throws you straight into things without really slowing down and telling you what's going on, I think of something like Metallic Rogue or Rouge or whatever it's called. You know,
Yes.
that one with the mecha suits or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, we're not going to explain any of this. I mean, it's Fate, so there's another Holy Grail war going on. Uh,
Which they
I
call the Holy Grail War every time they say it, and it's really funny because it was the dub and it sounded really stilted.
yes. Well, you seem to not be particularly fond of this anime's dub in general.
Oh,
Uh,
I mean, actually, I was gonna say, like, as far as dubs go, it wasn't that bad. I mean, like, any dub is gonna reduce my enjoyment by like 20% if it was made in the last 10 years,
damn,
but
that is pretty steep. I will say, as far as Fate dubs go, Funimation or whoever are some lazy motherfuckers because the visual novel is not dubbed. So you'll just, it's basically like watching an anime subbed, only it's a visual novel. And I've seen some people say, well, they can't do that. There's like a fuck ton of content they'd have to record. And it's like, oh, yeah, so the Fate Stay Night visual novel was not, originally it didn't have any voice acting. Then the first anime got made, the subcast, and then they were like, fuck it. I guess for the re-release we can just have these guys add voice acting in it, which is pretty neat. And I think there is no excuse whatsoever for, I don't know, Funimation, Crunchyroll, whoever is in charge of the Funimation, the Fate dubs to do it, but to not do it, there's no excuse for it. But whatever, it's fine. I'm sure most people probably wouldn't have that audio on anyway, if we're being real, and that's probably why they won't. I don't know. The plot was a little bit confusing. You have Ayaka who's like seemingly being compelled to participate in the Holy Grail War against her will. She claims not to be a mage, but she also seemingly has a command spell on her body, but it's also not a command spell. Some guys kidnapped her and they tried to summon King Arthur, as in like Saber, Artorier, Pendragon. We get like a 10-second cameo from a character that we actually care about when they name her. We're not going to see her again, I'm assuming. And then we summon this other King Arthur, sorry, this other Saber who is not King Arthur, but design-wise seems like there could be a relation. So who knows? I mean, I kind of spoiled myself on this, and I already know this Saber's real name. I'm pretty sure they actually are some in some way connected to Artoria because they have their surname is like Lion something, and King Arthur is like connected to lions. So, but sorry, what were you gonna say?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was kind of boring.
Fate, the visual novel anyway, is definitely a slow burn to start with, and it wouldn't surprise me. Well, I was gonna say it wouldn't surprise me if they were doing that here, but then episode two kind of just goes into the action like straight away.
I was actually like starting to get interested in the latter half of episode one, and then episode two kind of drained all my enthusiasm because it was just action happening and like I wasn't really
But,
invested in any of these characters.
but Arlon, how could you not care about episode two? It had Gurugamesh.
The only character I liked in this was the male Saber. He was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean his personality is definitely more out there than actual Saber.
Incidentally, I feel like his dub performance hurt him the most of any character because even though he wasn't bad, he like he wasn't bringing the energy he needed to be bringing to that character.
Damn, you know, Funimation, famously infamous for sometimes only doing one take. Uh, but nah, that's about it. I mean, there's like two different factions that seem to be trying to like influence the Holy Grail War to go one way or another. You have like this shadow organization that's like hidden within the police department, and then you have this other faction that's like run by this little girl who's trying to like make a spectacle of the Holy Grail War, and I guess they're trying to like oppose that. The Einsburn family is somehow involved in this, and they're supposedly the reason why Ayaka is even here.
Yeah,
Um,
see the like I
and
I didn't get any of this. I was not
oh, Well, I mean,
present enough to really follow that.
The Einsburn family is like one of the three main mage families in the original Fate Stay Night that like was like involved in the creation of the Holy Grail and the Holy Grail War.
They also don't explain what that is, and I mean, I knew a little bit about it just through you talking about it, but I mean, that kind of seems like something they should have just, take a little
Oh,
moment.
well, the Holy Grail is something that ostensibly grants your wish when you get your hands on it, and the Holy Grail War is like it was like a thing that was started by the three main mage families, the Tosakas, the Makiris, and the Einsburns. Um, I mean, it basically started because there were a bunch of assholes who couldn't agree to share the power of the Holy Grail War, the Holy Grail, or something to that effect. Although they, I guess, are civil enough to agree not to kill each other outside of when the Holy Grail War is currently happening. It was very confusing because the Holy Grail is something that like wills itself into like preparing to come, but then like it turns out that like that's not the case and that the Einsburns like actually prepare the Holy Grail in a person. Like a person is like the Holy Grail. Spoilers for the visual novel, I guess. And it's like it's very confusing. Uh I don't know if that's how they're gonna do it in this. It kind of seems like the way the Holy Grail itself like spawns is like totally random. It never actually spawns as the actual Holy Grail. Like they always show it as like is it a chalice? What is it called? I forget.
Sure, a
They always
chalice or a
they
grail.
they always show it as that, but it never is that. Like in the Fate route, it's like a fucking portal that's just spewing out a curse. And then in the Unlimited Blade Works route, it's just like a giant like temple-sized fucking flesh thing. And then in the Heaven's Feel, it's a woman. So like I mean, I think it's implied that it appeared as the actual Grail in like the Holy Grail War before Fate's Day Night because they talk about like how a character like gained immortality by being splashed by the contents of it at the end or something. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, this is clearly made for people who know what Fate is and have like I'm gonna assume this is probably the case for a lot of Fate content. A lot of it is not really made with like newbies in mind, you know?
Yeah.
Which is probably part of the reason why Fate infamously known for being confusing. Because like there are probably a lot of people who will be like, I'm gonna watch Fate. I'm gonna start with the most recent one. Let's say this is like 2016 or something. I'm gonna watch Fate Apocrypha, and that's the one that has Astolfo on it, so that's the one I'm gonna watch. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? And then you'll go on Fate Twitter, and then people be like, well, Fate is actually not that confusing, and it's like, bro, stop the cat. Um, that's just like a gripe I have with fan bases in general, where they'll be like knee deep in this shit. So like their
Yeah.
perspective is obviously different from a person who's like from the outside looking in. Kingdom Hearts
Hmm.
fans are guilty of doing this too. They'll be like, "Oh, Kingdom Hearts is not that confusing at all," and it's like you got to be,
Sounds like the Linux fandom.
yeah. And no, it's
Look, I mean, what I'll say on that is like, I'm a Brandon Sanderson fan. So I'm
yeah,
no stranger to uh, giant multimedia universes with a bunch of different stuff you need to consume to understand everything that's going on.
yeah,
And I mean, I do think that can be a selling point because if you're looking for something that like is going to be like a special interest that's just like the one thing you care about, it's nice to have something that you, as much as you're willing to put into
engage with it.
it, you will keep,
Yeah,
you will receive fruits for that, you know?
yeah.
But the drawback is like you're describing.
It's weird because I mean I can't say for sure because so far all I've really engaged with is like Fate Stay Night. I don't really know how connected like all of these things like really are. obviously you have to like know what like the base concepts are, like what the Holy Grail War is, what a
Yeah.
servant is, etc. But I think for the most part, these are like completely like isolated like story. Like for example, in the case of Fate Stay Night, I mean this is kind of what the point I was getting at earlier is that the main characters of that, there is only one piece of media that is actually like a direct sequel to that, and it's another visual novel called Fate Hollow Ataraxia or something like that, or Atraxia or something like that. It's like the only time where you're like hanging out with Shiro and Rin and Artoria Pendragon and et cetera, et cetera. And if that's like the level of investment that you have is those characters in particular, like that thing, Fate Stay Night, Hollow Atraxia, and I guess there's like a few anime like this Carnival, whatever it's called, that you can watch. And then after that, it's like, okay, how much do I care enough about like the other stuff to you know, go and
Yeah.
play like Fate Grand Order, which is I guess like a mobile game, like a gotcha game or something.
But
And
Astolfo is in it, isn't he?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he is. That's where he debuted. Um,
Nice.
when it comes to Fate Great Under, I hear that like the thing is if you're like into Fate for the story, you're not gonna play that because I hear that like it has some story, but it's like pretty underwhelming. And like it's kind of like a meme in the Fate fan base that like the most people thank Grand Order for is the buckets of porn that have come out of its wake. So
No.
it's but yeah, sorry, go on.
I think my issue with it really is I just don't find like but I guess you like the characters, but I just
Hmm.
don't find anything I've heard about the world or the setup to be particularly captivating. When you start getting into Cosmere lore, when I hear that, I'm like, this is my shit. I'm all for expansive world building with like interesting. I like world building that makes everything feel bigger and gives me more questions, as we talked about a little bit in the Daima cast. So
Yeah,
when I hear like, oh, it's like I know you said people would get mad if you called it this, but it's like a death game.
yeah.
It's a death game. I guess I mean
Honestly,
there's
I
I
could
don't
be
know.
wrong on this because I'm not I'm like for someone who's watched as much anime as I have, I still consider myself to be kind of an entry level weeb. I am I wrong in suggesting that Fate was kind of like the premiere of this genre, like the blueprint as it were? Is that incorrect? I mean, Fate came out in 2004, so like,
When
you
was
know,
Death Note written?
well, I mean, Death Note's not a death game.
It's kind of like a death game.
I would I think the first example that people think of when they think of a death game anime is Future Diary. And Future Diary is definitely structured a lot like Fate Stay Night, if you ask me. I wouldn't be surprised if that was like a pretty core influence for that.
Hmm.
But I mean, to your point, I was talking about how episode two goes straight into the action. One of my favorite moments, the Fate Stay Night visual novel, is when the characters are kind of just hanging out, talking about stuff, not even necessarily related to the Holy Grail War, just bouncing off of each other and goofing off. It kind of, if you're like someone who like dislikes death game stuff, but you like, let's say you like slice of life stuff or you like romance or whatever, you might appreciate the fact that like, it is kind of like mostly that, because I feel like it's like maybe like, let's say even if it's not necessarily like low stake stuff, let's say 60% characters talking and then like 40% action. It definitely helps that like you're seeing things from the perspective of like your main characters and like half the time other characters are like chipping other masters off. So that kind of like cuts down the action a little bit. But unfortunately, from what I understand, because I haven't seen that many Fate or any Fate anime productions except for what we watched for this. They're kind of infamous for watering down the slice of life aspect and kind of just focusing entirely on the action, especially the movies. because most of the adaptations of Fate Stay Night, I believe, are movie adaptations, except for one of the Fate route and Unlimited Blade Works. From what I understand, it's weird because at first I was under the impression that the first Fate Stay Night anime by Studio Dean is generally considered to be pretty bad. Because it does like a weird thing where it tries to like mix in adapting all the routes. After talking about it more with like other people who like Fate Stay Night, it kind of seems like some people consider it to be like among one of the better adaptations because it actually gives a shit about like adapting the slice of life moments. And I appreciate that. I can appreciate that in spite of the ways it might have undercut like being a truly faithful adaptation to these routes. Watching like say for example the Heaven's Feel movies or the Unlimited Blade Works movie, that it sounds kind of exhausting to be honest. Like one thing I've realized about myself, I mean I've talked about it before, I think on the Dimecast, is that people like to call me a shonen.
Right.
I feel like that's not true in the slightest at this point. I feel like it's just emphatically not true. The number of battle shonen I've watched is actually pretty small. And one thing I've definitely realized about myself recently is that I find drawn out action that is long to be kind of exhausting. So the idea of like watching like nonstop action without any downtime in like say an Unlimited Blade Works movie is like I'm not very keen on that. And I might enjoy it if anything because I've already read the visual novels. It's hard to imagine getting attached to the characters when you don't have that there. And, it kind of feels like Strange Fake might run into the same problem. It's too early to tell. I mean, to be honest, some of the posters of this kind of give the impression that it's like it might become like a road trip type thing. I'm not sure.
Ah.
But then I've also heard people describe it as fight slop, which sounds par for the course for like animated adaptations of Fate, which is kind of unfortunate. It kind of confuses me that if what I've heard is true, it kind of confuses me that the Dean anime is generally considered to be the worst because it sounds like it's the one that's like the best at like balancing out all the genres that the original Fate Stay Night visual novel was trying to appeal to. But it's hard to say. I'd have to actually watch these first.
Yeah, I guess you got to watch all of them to see for yourself.
Well, um, I actually do intend to watch the Dean adaptation of Fate Stay Night. I don't know if I want. I mean, Dean made a movie adaptation of Unlimited Blade Works, but I kind of don't want to watch that, and I'll probably just watch the series. But I also heard that the series is kind of boring because I guess this is part of the reason why some people don't appreciate when they adapt the downtime is the huge lore drops that Fate is kind of infamous for. So, I mean, I guess if you're if you're someone who's complaining about if you're watching Fate Strange Fate, for example, and you're someone who's like, well, it doesn't seem like it takes the time to slow down and actually explain this stuff, I guess it's because people don't want that. They
Ooh.
actually do just want the Fate anime to be fight slop, which is kind of unfortunate. So,
From everything I've heard, not super interested in consuming more of this or any other Fate thing, but I
damn.
appreciate you, Coco, for exposing me to Fate through osmosis because it does feel like a pretty important cultural touchstone that I was totally ignorant to before you started talking about it.
Well, Faye was kind of on my radar for like a while, uh, because of the reasons you just stated, but I never really like seriously considered like actually engaging with anything. I didn't know anything about Fate like at all. Like, for example, when I heard like the term unlimited like Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, I just thought it was like a remake of like the original Fate anime or something. I didn't realize it was like adapting all the roots separately, which I've never seen that before when it comes to anime adaptations of visual novels. They usually just like Yosuga no Sora, for example, it does do adaptations of roots, but it's all contained within like a singular series. And I imagine compared to I mean, Yosuga no Sora itself is a decent anime, but I
They
imagine
should do that for Orimo.
it's significantly watered down compared to, the actual visual novel because every route gets like 3 episodes. And I imagine that's not really doing justice to them. So I guess I can see why with Fate they'd be like, fuck that. We want to do justice to everything. So we're gonna make 2-hour movies where we cut out, you know, but whatever. I've already
Yeah.
ranted about that.
Noah Stolfo 0 out of 10, but actually like probably like a
Oh,
5 out of 10. I'll
yeah,
upgrade it to 7 out of 10 if they have gay sex in it. That's
bruh.
it.
I just want to say, Sawano, mix it up, bro. I was able to tell that was you doing the music for this without even looking, and I looked. Find some new instruments, bro. It's getting old. You got to
Dang.
mix it up. It's actually kind of unfortunate because some people actually are like, Sawano was like kind of generic at this point, and it's like you really got to mix your shit up at this point if people are saying that. How do you go from number one being number
Well,
one to
the
being
problem
generic?
is though that it's also kind of a typecasting thing. It's
Yeah,
like, you can say Jack Black or Adam Sandler are one note, but when the director comes to you, Jack Black or Adam Sandler, he's looking for you to be a wacky, goofy guy.
yeah.
So you can't mix it up, you know?
I mean, that's kind of true because when you listen to like his well, I'm assuming they're non-anime music, but they could be, and I just find the original track before the anime it's in. But it does sound a little bit more varied. So I guess what I'm saying is anime directors let Sawano flex his chops, I guess.
Yes.
And also, this is actually a 10 out of 10 because it has Gurugame!